I've been noticing this more and more lately. Influencers don't just want views anymore, they feel like they need them. Hi, I'm Timothy, and these are cases of TikTokers who died chasing fame. From a Taekwondo athlete who set up a fake robbery to land the perfect kick on camera, to a man who finally got his first real shot at going viral and took it further than he should have. It was August 22, 2017, in Pasadena, Texas. Evening traffic moved steadily through a grocery store parking lot as people loaded bags and returned carts. Within minutes, a staged scene meant for a short video would be mistaken for a real crime, and the response it triggered would unfold faster than anyone involved could react. Earlier that evening, Isabella Isa Ramos, 21, was getting ready for what she believed would be the video that changed everything. She was a collegiate Taekwondo athlete, disciplined, fast, and already used to performing under pressure. But lately, competition wasn't where her focus was. It was online. A few weeks earlier, one of her short clips, just a clean spinning hook kick filmed outside her campus gym, pulled in unexpected traction. The positive comments pushed her in a new direction, and an idea stuck with her. Not just the move, but the reaction. That night, she worked with 3 friends to stage something bigger. The concept was simple, a fake holdup in a parking lot caught on camera, where she would step in and disarm the attacker using her Taekwondo training. It had to look real enough to stop people scrolling. Adrian Velasco, 23, would play the suspect wearing a hoodie and mask. The weapon was supposed to be a replica, something that looked convincing but wasn't functional. Mika Santos, 20, would film from a distance, keeping the framing loose and natural. Another friend stayed near the car to help coordinate timing. They chose a convenience store parking lot just after sunset. Busy enough for background movement, but not crowded enough to draw immediate interference. The goal was tension, not chaos. What they didn't account for was timing. At the far end of the same lot, near the darker row of parked vehicles, an actual holdup had already started. A man had approached a driver who had just stepped out of his car. There were no raised voices yet, no clear signals, just proximity and a weapon kept low. From Isa's position, she didn't see that part clearly. What she saw was a figure, masked, holding something shaped like a gun, and it matched the plan. Mika had already started recording. Isa stepped forward, focused and controlled. Her body language shifted instantly, from casual to engaged. This was the moment she had rehearsed. She moved in quickly, closing the distance to under 30 feet. The man turned slightly, reacting to movement he hadn't expected. From his perspective, someone was rushing him during an active robbery. Isa didn't hesitate. She pivoted off her lead foot and initiated a high roundhouse, aiming to knock the weapon away, exactly how she had practiced it dozens of times before. The motion was clean, fast, and fully committed. But the situation wasn't controlled, and the supposed actor shot her multiple times. The first shot struck her mid-motion, interrupting the kick before it could land. The second and third followed almost immediately, each fired at close range as she collapsed forward. 2 more shots came as she hit the ground, her body no longer upright. The sound changed everything. People nearby dropped or froze. Someone shouted. A car door slammed. The man backed away, then turned and ran between vehicles, disappearing toward the street. Emergency services were called immediately. When paramedics arrived, they found Isa on the pavement, unresponsive. She had multiple gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen. There was significant blood loss. Her breathing was shallow and irregular. CPR was initiated immediately, and she was transported under emergency conditions. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The post-mortem report confirmed the cause of death as multiple gunshot wounds leading to rapid internal bleeding and organ damage. In simple terms, several major structures inside her chest were damaged beyond what emergency care at the scene could stabilize. Investigators later reconstructed the timeline using witness accounts and nearby surveillance footage. They confirmed that 2 separate events had overlapped in the same space, one staged, one real. From Isa's angle, there was no clear difference. Witnesses saw the suspect fleeing the scene. He was identified within 48 hours and arrested 2 days later. He told investigators he fired because he believed he was being attacked. The firearm was recovered and matched to the scene. He was later charged with robbery and homicide. In court, the focus centered on whether his use of force was justified under a perceived threat. The jury ultimately rejected that claim, citing that he initiated the crime and created the conditions that led to the shooting. He was convicted and sentenced to 28 years in prison. I'll be honest, that one's hard to sit through because it all falls apart so fast. Now this next story might feel a lot more normal at first, but trust me, it turns way worse than you expect. It was July 4th, 2018, in Clearwater, Florida. By nightfall, the neighborhood was full of folding chairs, paper plates, and cheap fireworks. In one backyard, a stunt looked harmless as it was set up in plain view. Phones were raised before anyone understood there was almost no room for error. As the fireworks started, Cody Pruitt, 24, wasn't just moving through the crowd. He was setting up a moment he believed could change everything for him online. He worked for a landscaping crew, picking up extra shifts most weeks. But lately, his focus had shifted. TikTok had started to matter more than his routine. He had just hit 5,000 followers, and instead of seeing it as a milestone, he treated it like a starting line. He told friends he didn't want to grow slowly. He wanted one video that would push him straight into 6 figures, something risky enough to stop people from scrolling. Up to that point, his content had been small dares, quick stunts, and harmless reactions. Nothing that really stood out. And that was the problem. It was not crazy enough yet. In the days leading up to the holiday, he locked onto one idea, a fireworks stunt that would feel extreme, something no one else around him was doing. Not just lighting fireworks, but becoming part of it. He bought a 3-inch mortar kit from a roadside stand and modified it, duct taping the launch tube to a construction hard hat. He showed it off earlier that day, not just as a joke, but as content. He talked about angles, timing, and how it would look on camera. Some friends laughed. A few told him straight up it was a bad idea, but by that point, he wasn't really listening for safety. He was listening for reactions, and the stronger the reaction, the more convinced he became that it would work online. By 8:45 p.m., the block party had spread across 2 yards. Kids were using sparklers near the driveway while adults stood around coolers talking over music. Fireworks were already going off in the distance, lighting the sky in short bursts. Around 9:02, Cody brought out the helmet. This time it wasn't just something he was showing, it was something he was about to film. A small group formed around him, but more importantly, phones started coming out. That was the moment he had been building toward. Investigators later noted that several people stepped back as he put the helmet on. The mood shifted from casual to tense, but Cody stayed focused on the setup. Around 9:04, he placed the mortar shell into the tube. Witnesses said it didn't slide in cleanly. Instead of stopping, he adjusted his head, trying to seat it deeper, making sure it would go off clean for the camera. That movement tilted the tube slightly forward. Someone nearby told him to stop. Another moved further back, but Cody didn't respond. By then, everything was locked in. Not just the setup, but the idea that this was the clip. At approximately 9:05, he leaned forward and used a lighter to ignite the fuse. Witnesses described the fuse burning for a few seconds. Then the device activated. Based on the debris pattern, the tube wasn't stable at ignition. Instead of launching upward, the shell failed to clear the tube. It detonated at or just above head level, producing a bright flash and a sharp blast that echoed across the neighborhood. The stunt he believed would make him go viral never left the helmet. The force of the explosion tore the tube apart and shifted the helmet off position. Cody collapsed immediately where he stood. People closest to him later described visible blood on the ground near his feet, fragments of cardboard and tape scattered outward, and damage to nearby objects such as a cooler and a chair. The injuries were consistent with severe trauma to the head and upper spine. He showed no movement after falling. Witnesses also reported a delayed aerial burst overhead moments after the initial explosion. Some people reacted as if it were part of the display before realizing something was wrong. The crowd's response shifted quickly as individuals moved closer while others stepped back, unsure how to react. A neighbor with medical training reached him first, checked for breathing and pulse, and found none. She called emergency services at 9:06 p.m., reporting a firework explosion involving a head injury. Multiple calls were made at the same time by others nearby. Paramedics arrived in approximately 6 minutes and confirmed no signs of life. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be catastrophic head and neck trauma from a close-range explosion. In simple terms, the firework detonated too close to his head, and the force caused fatal damage instantly. Investigators collected physical evidence from the scene, including fragments of the device and personal items. The death was ruled accidental. In the days that followed, witness statements consistently described the same sequence: the short fuse, the sudden blast, and the delayed burst overhead. A small memorial of candles and flowers was later placed at the location in the yard. I don't know what's worse, that he thought it would work, or that everyone around him just let it happen. But this next one feels different, because this time, the danger is right there, and it still gets ignored. It was March 14, 2017, in North Brisbane, Australia. The grass fields were open and quiet, with kangaroos grazing near the edge of a walking path. In the fading light, one short decision to stay instead of leaving placed a person within range of an animal built to react fast. As the evening settled, Jack Marin, 24, walked along the path with his dog, Ringo, a blue heeler mix known for pulling at anything that moved. Jack worked in warehouse logistics in Caboolture, handling freight and long shifts that kept his schedule uneven. Lately, his focus had shifted online. He had been posting short clips of wildlife, trying to grow his TikTok account beyond a small circle of viewers. Most of his videos were simple and got little attention, and that started to bother him. He watched other creators gain traction from close encounters with animals, and he began looking for something that could do the same for him. When he spotted the kangaroo, he didn't see a warning. He saw an opportunity. Instead of backing away, he focused on framing the shot, thinking it might be the clip that finally pushed his account into something bigger. At around 6:12 p.m., Jack reached an open section of the wetlands and noticed a group of kangaroos about 260 feet out. Witnesses later said he stopped near the path, holding his phone up while his dog, Ringo, stood alert and pulled lightly on the retractable leash. He shifted position slightly, staying just off the path but facing the animals directly. By 6:19 p.m., a large male kangaroo separated from the group and turned toward him. It stood upright, balanced on its tail, ears forward, watching without moving closer. People further down the trail later said the animal looked fixed in place, not afraid, just waiting. Jack stayed where he was, holding the leash as Ringo pulled lightly. At 6:22 p.m., Ringo barked sharply and lunged forward, stretching the retractable leash to its limit. The sudden movement drew a response. The kangaroo stepped forward in slow, measured strides, never breaking its focus. Its body stayed upright, but its stance changed slightly, shifting weight as it closed part of the distance. Jack pulled the dog back, tightening the leash, and for a brief moment the animal stopped again. That was the point where space still existed between them. Instead of backing away, Jack moved forward. Based on scene measurements and witness accounts, he stepped off the path and positioned himself between the dog and the kangaroo, reducing the gap to roughly 10 to 12 feet. At around 6:24 p.m., he raised his arms slightly as if to guide or block. Ringo barked again, louder this time, and lunged forward with more force. Investigators later noted the change in the kangaroo's posture. Its body lowered slightly, forearms dropping, and its weight shifted back over its tail. This position allowed it to stabilize and prepare to strike. Jack bent down at the same moment, reaching toward the dog's collar. His focus split between controlling the leash and the animal in front of him. The kangaroo reacted immediately. It covered the remaining distance in 2 fast bounds. Its forearms struck Jack high on the chest and shoulders, gripping and holding him upright. The contact was direct and controlled, pinning his upper body in place. The animal leaned back against its tail, lifting both hind legs at once. The kick landed across Jack's lower abdomen with full force. Witness analysis and injury patterns showed both blunt impact and tearing. The claws on the hind feet cut deeply as the legs drove forward, creating a wide, open wound while the force pushed him backward. His body lifted slightly from the ground before he fell onto the grass, landing on his side. The kangaroo released him immediately after the strike. It stepped back several paces, paused briefly, then turned and moved away toward the rest of the group. There was no continued attack. The entire contact lasted only a few seconds. Jack rolled slightly onto his side, one hand pressing against his abdomen. The movement was limited and uncoordinated. Witnesses who arrived later described shallow, uneven breathing, with his chest rising weakly and then pausing. There was visible blood loss, and his posture remained fixed, unable to straighten or push up. He did not call out or attempt to stand. Ringo circled him briefly, the leash dragging across the grass, then stayed near his legs, whining but not moving far. Within 1 to 2 minutes, Jack's movements slowed further. His breathing became less visible, then stopped completely. At approximately 7:05 p.m., a jogger approaching from the opposite direction saw him lying off the path and called emergency services. Paramedics arrived at 7:22 p.m., assessed no breathing and no pulse, and pronounced him dead at the scene. The post-mortem report listed the cause of death as severe internal bleeding from abdominal trauma. In simple terms, the force of the kick damaged internal organs and major blood vessels, causing rapid blood loss inside the body. Without immediate surgical intervention, survival was not possible. Police reviewed the scene and surrounding conditions. The animal's behavior was classified as a defensive response triggered by the dog at close range. Wildlife officers did not remove the kangaroo. Additional warning signs were later placed along the walking paths, advising visitors to keep a distance and avoid bringing dogs near kangaroos in open areas. Now, this next story might not look dangerous right away, but trust me, it builds into something you won't see coming. On March 18th, 2016, in Los Angeles, California, the rooftop sat quiet above the city, with faint traffic noise drifting up from below. Evening light spread evenly across the surface, reflecting off concrete and scattered materials, while sections of the space remained unfinished, with temporary barriers and open areas breaking the layout. Up there, Alyssa Moreno, 23, adjusted her phone on a small tripod, checking the framing before stepping back into position. She hadn't always filmed like this. For most of the past year, her content had been simple. Makeup tutorials, product reviews, short transformation clips filmed in her bedroom. At first, it worked. Her videos picked up steady views, enough to build a following and attract small brand attention. But over time, the numbers slowed, engagement dropped, and the same format that once stood out started blending in with everything else. She noticed it early, and it started to bother her. And honestly, this is something I've been noticing a lot lately. Creators don't just post anymore, they feel like they have to keep leveling up just to stay relevant. In the weeks leading up to that night, she began changing things. Less focus on products, more on presentation, different locations, better lighting, wider shots. She told a friend she didn't want to be just another makeup page anymore. She wanted something that people would actually stop and watch. That shift led her to places like this. According to later reports, she entered the building through an unlocked service entrance and made her way up using an internal stairwell. The rooftop level showed clear signs of ongoing work. stacked materials, exposed sections, and temporary railings placed along parts of the perimeter. Most of it was intact, but not all of it. At around 6:42 p.m., she set up near a section where the city skyline opened clearly in the background. The light was even, the horizon clean. From the camera's perspective, it looked finished, almost intentional. From where she stood, the edge was only a few steps behind her. The video she planned followed a format she had been testing. Start close to the camera, then step back into frame, revealing both the transformation and the setting at once. It wasn't just about makeup anymore. It was about where it was filmed, what it looked like, and how different it felt from everything else on the app. Investigators later noted that she adjusted her position several times before recording. Based on the recovered footage, she lowered the tripod slightly and tilted it upward to capture more of the skyline. That adjustment brought her framing closer to the roof's edge. A temporary barrier had been installed nearby, but it didn't extend across the entire section. Part of the perimeter remained open. At approximately 6:47 p.m., she started recording. She stepped into frame, facing the camera, then turned slightly as planned, aligning herself with the background. The movement was controlled, familiar, something she had done many times before in safer places. To complete the shot, she needed to step backward, gradually revealing the space behind her. Her first step was steady, and the second brought her closer to the edge without her noticing. She didn't look behind her, keeping her focus fixed on the camera as she continued the movement. The third step carried her past the point where the surface ended, where no barrier had been installed. Still following the motion exactly as planned, she stepped back again into empty space. She fell from the upper level to the ground below. Based on impact evidence, she struck the pavement approximately 30 feet down. The force of the fall caused immediate catastrophic injury, and the position of her body indicated she lost consciousness on impact. No one nearby witnessed the fall directly. The building was not fully occupied at the time, and the rooftop remained isolated. Her phone, still recording, was later found near the edge. She was discovered later that evening by a maintenance worker conducting a routine check. Emergency services were called immediately, but responders confirmed there were no signs of life. The post-mortem report listed the cause of death as severe head trauma resulting from a fall from height. In simple terms, the impact caused critical damage to the brain, stopping normal function instantly. Investigators reviewed the footage alongside the physical layout of the rooftop. The video showed her stepping backward in a controlled sequence, repeating the same movement she had practiced before. There was no sign of panic, no sudden mistake, just a continuation of the motion. The case was ruled accidental, and authorities later secured the area to prevent further access. What stood out in the final report wasn't just how she fell, but why she had moved into that position in the first place. The location wasn't necessary for the video, it just looked aesthetic. And what annoys me is how small the reason actually was. It wasn't about danger, it was about how the shot looked. But the next case hits differently. It's about someone finally getting their first real opportunity and making one decision they thought would secure it. It was October 29, 2017 in Northumberland, England, inside the abandoned Whittingham Hospital. The building had been empty for years, with rain seeping through broken roofs and walls. From the corridor, the floor still looked usable, even though the structure underneath had already weakened beyond what it could safely support. Inside that space, Sean Calloway, 25, moved forward with a camera strapped to his chest, recording. He worked long shifts at a supermarket distribution center in Newcastle, loading trucks overnight. For a while, TikTok had just been something he did on the side, posting clips from abandoned places, exploring quietly, showing what most people never saw. His videos picked up slowly, nothing major, but enough to keep him going. Then something changed. One of his recent clips started gaining traction, more views than usual, more comments, more shares. Not viral, but close enough to feel like it could turn into something bigger. A few people reached out. One small content page even messaged him about featuring his videos if he could send something more intense. something that stood out. It was the first time it felt real. He told friends this was his chance, his first real opportunity to break through. Not just another upload, but something that could actually push him forward. And to him, that meant one thing. It had to be better than everything he'd done before. That night's location wasn't random. According to later investigation reports, he entered the site just after midnight through a bent section of fencing. The ground floor was cluttered with broken furniture, loose tiles and debris, but stable enough to walk across. He moved carefully, stepping around fallen plaster and exposed wiring, keeping the camera steady as he recorded his path. At 12:31 a.m., he reached a stairwell and climbed to the second floor. The stairs were worn but still intact. By 12:44 a.m., he had reached the third floor, where the structure had deteriorated further. Large sections of flooring were already missing, exposing open gaps to the level below, but he didn't turn back. At 12:51 a.m., he reached the end of a corridor leading to a larger room with open windows. From a distance, the space looked cleaner, more open, with light coming through. It stood out visually, exactly the kind of shot that could make a difference. Investigators later noted that he paused there. The framing mattered. Based on the recovered footage, he adjusted his position, angling the camera so the damaged corridor stretched behind him while the open space filled the front of the frame. It matched the style he had been building, placing himself right at the edge, making the risk part of the video. Between him and the doorway was a section of floor that sagged slightly. From above, it still looked usable. What wasn't visible was the condition underneath. Structural analysis later showed the timber supports had rotted at the ends from long-term moisture exposure. They were no longer secured even though the surface remained in place. At 12:53 a.m., he stepped onto it. The initial drop was small, just enough to register under his weight. He didn't step back. Instead, he adjusted forward, keeping the shot steady. The camera remained fixed in the same direction, capturing the space ahead. Seconds later, the support gave way. The timber cracked and separated rapidly, and the floor collapsed beneath him. He fell from the third floor toward the second. Impact marks showed his body struck a timber joist along his left side, forcing a rotation. He then hit the second floor heavily on his shoulder and the side of his head. The surface beneath him failed on impact, and then he fell again. Investigators estimated a total drop of over 20 feet, with 2 separate impact points identified from the debris pattern. Sean came to rest on the ground floor, partially covered by broken boards and plaster. The lack of movement and position of debris indicated he lost consciousness shortly after the second impact. The building remained empty. No one nearby reported the collapse clearly enough to respond. Sean often explored locations alone and had not shared his exact plans that night. On November 1st, 2 other explorers entered the building and noticed the collapsed section above. Following the debris trail, they found him on the ground level and called emergency services. Responders arrived shortly after and confirmed there were no signs of life. The post-mortem report listed the cause of death as traumatic brain injury. In simple terms, the impact on his head caused internal bleeding that stopped normal brain function. The other injuries, broken ribs and a collapsed lung, were severe but not the primary cause. The death was ruled accidental due to structural failure. Authorities documented the condition of the building and restricted access to prevent further entry. Investigators also reviewed the footage recovered from his camera. They noted that he had stopped just before the weakened section, not by accident, but to frame the shot. Then he stepped forward. What stood out in the report wasn't just the collapse itself, but the reason he moved into that position. It wasn't part of the path, it was part of the video, and the opportunity he thought would push him forward lasted only a few seconds.